One, thank you so much for taking the time. I know I say this every single week. You're probably a little sick of me by now, but it's okay because number one, first and foremost, I want to make sure this hour is well spent here with the three of us. So please jot down any notes, questions, comments, feedback, good, bad, and different we need and want to hear from each and every one of you. So we build these trainings around your feedback. Okay, we have over 24,000 agents now in the country. And yes, we can't please everyone every single week, but overall, if you shoot us an email or share some feedback, comments, questions, right, we can try to cater around your needs, wants, right? And if you have a sales idea, maybe there's a new product carrier and you want us to focus in on that, just please share those comments. And we meet literally every Tuesday morning around the conference room table with our marketing team, and we put these ideas and thoughts together. We take it very, very seriously, and we hopefully between the trainings, the podcast, the annual expo, that we cover all of your needs and wants, which is our goal. Okay, so what are we talking about today? I'll just give you the quick 100-foot overview. So Baltimore Life and Annuity. Okay, they have some great niche products on both the life and annuity side that we're going to dive into. And when you think about all of the big core brokerage carriers, like Corebridge, Pac Life, Protective, and they have a lot of the bases covered when it comes to inexpensive term and IUL, maybe GUL, but you also need carriers in your toolbox, right, that may focus on a certain niche, maybe single premium, maybe if it's a MIGA product, right, where you need to shine and you need to be a step above your competition. So that's where Baltimore Life comes in. And I don't want to steal any of Sean's thunder, but what you're going to find is you're going to hear about a product or a sales idea or niche that you say, wow, this is great. I could have used this with my last appointment or maybe an upcoming campaign or seminar. So make sure you're paying attention. I think you're going to love what he has to share. And I think you're definitely going to want to use Baltimore Life in your toolbox moving forward. Okay, especially after you hear what he has to say and some of the new updates and changes. So all good stuff. What we're going to do as well is at the end, so right before 3 p.m. Eastern, Sean will actually present. He's going to turn it back to me, and then I'm going to close out and share some great social media posts that are working, some great new resources that you're able to tap into now as a Levinson agent, and then have our question of the day. And whoever answers our question first wins the Apple AirPods and IUL prospecting book. Okay, so make sure you're on until the end. Let's move forward into our first slide here. And I know there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot going on in our industry. There's a lot going on here at Levinson, and we're very proud of all of the updates. October was probably not only the busiest month of the year and most hectic month of the year, it was the most productive month in my 25 years in this business, and for so many reasons. So I'm just going to touch on this quickly. I don't want to take up too much time with my ranting, but October, as you know by now, right? It was my birthday month, and we dedicate it to Pinktober, to the American Cancer Society. So we make a nice donation on your behalf, on our agents and our staff, and based on your paid premium. So this month was our biggest donation to date, or I should say for October last month, our biggest donation to date. So that is awesome, number one. Number two, we just launched an awesome podcast with one of our top annuity producers. So check that one out. That's episode 62. We also had a huge press release go out in October about our new partnership with AmeriLife, so we can finally launch our health insurance department, which is going great. We're starting off just on the senior health side. So make sure you check that out when you can. We also have a full suite of agent benefits now. that we've never had before. So you can literally participate in a group health insurance plan, E&O that's about 30% less. It even covers B-rated companies or greater. So there's so many pluses. It's an exclusive life and health lead platform, co-op discounted rates we never had access to before. So all of that went on in October. Okay, our phones, our emails, our social media messages have been going crazy. On top of that, we find out in October that Banner Life has picked us, Levinson and Associates, as the top IMO leader of the month. So in fact, I already have the article. You're going to see it's in compliance right now. You're going to see this launched within a week or so from Banner Life and William Penn. And then obviously we'll market it as well. But it's such an honor. We're so grateful. And we could never do this without each and every one of you. Okay. You're our customer, our agent, our number one. So I just wanted to point that out and just say once again, thank you for hanging in there. Thank you for working with us. Thank you for the opportunity. I mean, overall, we appreciate it. We know you have many options, right? We have agents in Hawaii, literally all over the country, and you chose us. So thank you once again. Anyway, fast forward, let's shift gears to November. So Long-Term Care Awareness Month. We have you covered. In fact, we have a webinar focused on just this next week. So make sure you're on it. Here are some LTC facts, left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, we talk about the top hybrid carriers. Okay, so top hybrid products in the space today. This is either life annuity with LTC or standalone long-term care products. Okay, we have literally everything covered, and we dive into all of this on our LTC awareness webinar. So make sure you're on that. And then what we're going to do is I'll send a thank you email out to all of the attendees tonight. So you'll have this information at your fingertips. All right, let's keep moving forward. What I want to talk about next is our agent feedback. And these are reviews, by the way, that you or another agent or you can leave as soon as we hang up today's call on our Facebook page or on our Google reviews link. Okay, make sure you share some feedback, comments, reviews. We'll send you an IUL prospecting book on us. Top left corner, this is Charisma, our case manager. Thank you so much for your help. You are the best. David, thank you for sharing. On the bottom, Christy is a marketer with us. Love the quote summary with the term in UL. You make me look so professional. You are the best. Kendra, that's everything, right? That's what moves the needle internally here at Levinson and Associates. So keep sharing. We'd love to see this stuff. Let's keep moving forward. I want to talk about our huge event of the year. So for 2026, the theme, the hashtag is Stack the Bricks in 26. And the point is, number one, bigger and better for our agents, right? This is the first year that we're actually going to have not just life and annuity, but the health insurance side as well covered. So you're going to hear from top life, health, and annuity carriers, our lead vendors, tech vendors. Everybody will be there. What we're doing to make this even more special, yes, it's complimentary, right? There's no charge. We get breakfast, networking lunch. It's right on the beach in South Florida. It's a win-win-win, right? But above and beyond that, we will literally pay for a 2-bedroom suite for you and a guest right on the sand, okay, one night, or we'll do round trip airfare and up to 2 free nights in our 2-bedroom suite for the weekend. Call it a staycation, vacation, whatever you want. For December, we're doing double credit. So that counts. That's all policies and premium. Doesn't matter if it's a guaranteed issue accidental death plan or an IUL, an annuity, whatever it is. Double credit December. Okay, it's our little way of saying thank you for the holidays. Make sure to get the premium in, and then you'll have a nice little weekend on us, including the expo on April 17th. Make sure you write that down. April 17th, 26. Let's keep moving forward. This is my last slide, and then Sean's going to take the wheel. This is our 411 update. So we have so much going on now, right? I mean, we have more employees now than ever, right? In fact, we have employees in 4 states all over the country. Okay, so we have you covered. There's a lot going on. We have over 90 carriers, right? Our new health insurance department. We have all these new agent benefits, new lead programs, right? New carriers, products, all the above. It's impossible, literally, for you to keep your finger on the pulse with everything new, hot, what went away, right? Literally, you'd have to be on 100+ websites every day. So we do all of that for you. And then we send this email out every other week. It's sitting in your inbox. So my point is, make sure you're getting this. Make sure you check it out. If you're not, let us know. Okay, that means we have your incorrect email, or maybe it's sitting in your spam folder. But reach out. You got to call us and just say, hey, I'm not getting the alert. Here's my correct email, and we'll get that squared away for you. Let's keep moving forward. This is my final slide here, my introduction slide. So Sean is our RVP with Baltimore Life, and he's going to take the wheel from here. Sit back, relax, and take plenty of notes. Sean, you there, buddy?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right. Okay, thanks, Bill. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with your group. We're going to cover 3 different products this afternoon. All 3 would be new arrows in your quiver, so to speak. Like Bill said, we've had a great partnership. We'd love to give you all the opportunity to sell new products to clients, existing clients, new clients. Some of this is new concepts maybe that you haven't heard before, or if you have heard them before, hopefully it's an opportunity to implement some of these concepts with some of your clients. There's no doubt that a lot of your clients are going to have the need for these 3 products. And again, like Bill said, we've got some products that are niche products. They're not being talked about a lot in the industry. I don't think you're going to run up against other agents that are talking about these concepts as much as you all could be. So I think it's a differentiator for all of you. We're going to start with tax efficient asset transfer, which is really just a fancy way of saying single premium life. And we have 2 products that we're going to cover in depth, but we're going to focus more on the sales concept piece of it. Obviously, the product stuff is easier to learn, and you can certainly learn it as you propose it to clients. So most of what we'll talk about is conceptual things this morning or this afternoon. And then the third product we'll get into briefly at the end is our MIGA. Like Bill mentioned, we got into the annuity space about a year ago, and I'll talk to you a little bit about why we're separating ourselves from some of the other carriers when it comes comes relative to MIGA and interest rates and competitiveness and so forth. So, but again, I wanted to start with tax efficient asset transfer, which, like I said, is a fancy way to say single premium life insurance. I'm going to blow up my screen here and go into a slideshow if I can. Before I dive into the concepts here, a little bit about us. If you're not familiar with Baltimore Life, if you're not contracted with us yet, I think it's important to share a little bit about the company and why you may want to do business with us. We hope that you do. First of all, we were founded in 1882, so we've been doing business for 143 years. That's pretty atypical, right, in our industry. There's a lot of carriers that have been around a long time. There's also, plenty of carriers that are newer to the industry that you all may be working with, and I think it's always been an advantage from my perspective to say to a client, the policy that I'm putting you with or putting on you is with a company that's been around since 1882, 143 years. They're not going anywhere. They're obviously in it, for the long haul. We are a mutual company, which means we're owned by our policyholders, right? So we do have whole life policies that we sell that are participating with dividends. We won't spend much time on that today, but being mutual is important also. It's important from the perspective that every time you sell a policy to someone, they become part owner of the company, and we're looking to be profitable for our policyholders, not for a stock price, right? Not for a shareholder. And I think that aligns well with our mission, which is really making sure that we're around for the next 143 years to be able to pay our claims. Like all insurance companies, or at least most insurance companies, we're pretty conservative when you look at our risk appetite, right? We invest primarily in corporate bonds that are highly rated. We've got 1.3 billion in assets. We have a surplus of roughly 90 million. We're A- rated with Kroll and B++ rated with AM Best, and that's really primarily due to the size of our company, right? We're a much smaller carrier than some of the ones that Bill mentioned at the top of the call. But being small, provides us with the opportunity, I think, to offer really good service, and that's our objective, is to make sure that we've got number one products that are very competitive and can fill concepts that all of you are selling. But we also need to be able to be easy to do business with, right? And service. We have two customers. I thought Bill said it well. You all are his customer, and we look at the agent as our first customer, and then obviously the policyholder is the end customer. So we have to be able to support both and be easy to do business with both customers. And we operate in 49 states. We do business everywhere except for the state of New York. So the products that we'll train on today, you can sell all over the country. The opportunity, relative to single premium life, we've got two products, like I mentioned. One is really designed for qualified funds or tax deferred annuities. So think of it in terms of anything that's got a future taxable event, right? The great thing about IRAs and 401ks is they're all tax deferred, but the bad part about that is, one day the client's going to pay tax on it, right? And they're going to be looking for advice and strategies on how to spread that tax out, potentially even turn some of those assets or a portion of those assets into a tax-free death benefit, as well as a lot of living benefits, which we'll cover also. So there's this huge amount of money that's being deferred, tax deferred in the form of IRAs, 401ks, as well as annuities, right? Every time you sell even a non-qualified annuity, it starts to accumulate tax deferral, creates this future tax liability. And again, we should be talking to our clients about, things like, what's the purpose of that money, and are you concerned about taxes? And if I were to be able to show you strategies on how to spread out or eliminate taxes, is that something that you'd be interested in learning more about? And obviously, some clients are going to have an interest in learning more about that. And like I said earlier, I don't believe most agents are talking about this, right? Most life insurance agents and most annuity producers are going in with the objective to sell a life insurance policy, a traditional policy, or to sell an annuity. And sometimes that can be really, focused on transactional type sales, which is okay. But if you get into a more of a fact-finding process and start to have conversations with your clients about what their concerns are or what their goals are, it can lead to conversations around these two products as well. So if you were to really, categorize what's important to your client, I think, it would fall into one of these 5 or 6 different buckets. This is primarily the pre-retired market that we're talking about, as well as the retired market, people that are already on a fixed income. First and foremost, they tend to say they want to be able to live comfortably in retirement, right? They need to be able to pay their bills. So, starting with their retirement income, you all obviously focus on that, right? Making sure that we can create an income stream for them. And most clients, they go through life accumulating. So when they switch to the distribution phase, they're concerned about potentially outliving their money and making sure they have enough cash flow coming in. So typically we start there. I'm sure you all get into conversations around their health, right? They're concerned about, long-term care potential needs. They're all, Bill mentioned it earlier, the Medicare piece of the planning part of people that are 65 plus, right? Maintaining good health, making sure they can choose their doctor and they don't rack up medical bills, later in life. The third bucket would be, if they're able to, live a comfortable life in retirement and hopefully maintain good health, as they get older, they don't want to be a burden on their kids, right? So they'd like to be not just, financially independent, but also hopefully independent from a health perspective as well. They don't want to be a burden to them as best they can. They love their kids and grandkids. I always joke, if they don't love their children, they always seem to love their grandchildren, right? So they want to be able to help out with things like taking care of the grandkids when possible. They can do that while they're still alive. They certainly can do that upon their death, right, in terms of leaving assets to their heirs. And then, lastly, and I think probably the reason why this is such a great industry for all of us is they need guidance from an agent. Our industry is complicated. One of our objectives as agents is to really simplify, right, the advice we give and the concepts we propose, because if we don't simplify things, people, they tend to, get analysis paralysis and they can't take action, right? So they need guidance from all of you. They also need, I think, asked to buy. They need to be moved to action, right? That's one of the biggest callings as life insurance agents and annuity producers that we have, is we got to get people to take action, because if they don't, we can educate them all day long, but if they don't take our advice and take action, then obviously we're not ultimately able to help them in the long run. So in terms of estate planning, really estate planning is great for people that can afford it. Most of our clientele, at least in the middle market, they don't tend to do a whole lot of estate planning, right? They don't tend to set up trusts as much. They don't want to go through that process. Maybe they think it's expensive, and they don't really want to give up control of their assets, right? If you put assets into a trust, then you're giving up control and ownership, and you're at the mercy of a trustee and so forth. So there are ways to avoid probate, right? Just by simple things like naming beneficiaries, potentially setting up joint ownership, helping your clients to just position assets so that they can accomplish their objectives, not only at death, but also while they're still living. So again, most of our clients not getting into that, full estate planning, working with an attorney, and that's really why it's so important that they work with all of us. If you were to, categorize their assets, when you do a fact finder, and that's really the key to getting into this market is fact finding, right? You can't go in and meet with a client and try to make recommendations if you don't know what they have, why they have it, what their goals are, what their risk tolerance is. But if you were going to, take every dollar they have, you could really dump it into one of these three categories, right? It's either going to be used for retirement income, which, those are typically your annuity type sales, or it might be a contingency fund. I call that the emergency fund, right? So they don't really need it to pay their everyday bills, but it's the what ifs in life, right? What if I run out of money? What if I get sick and I need long-term care? What if the house needs a new roof? What if the furnace goes out? Again, it's money they don't need every day. Hopefully they may never need it, but it's the emergency fund. And then whatever's left over at the end, obviously, is the legacy fund. Or if they do are a little more affluent, they might look at a portion of their portfolio and say, well, that's really, even if I run into some emergencies, I'm still going to have this money sitting around that I'd like to set it up in the most advantageous way to go to my kids or my grandkids or my favorite charity, whatever the case may be. So the contingency fund, like we said, it's the rainy day fund. They're not expecting to use it, although they're likely to run into some emergency type things in retirement, right? They're likely to have some medical things happen, at some point before they pass away. They certainly, we know the market goes up and down, right? So if they have, retirement funds that aren't performing great, they might look at the emergency fund as a way to supplement some retirement income if they need it. If they live a long time, right, longevity risk, they may need to use some of their contingency fund for income later in life. And then long-term care needs. For those of you that have sold it, it's gotten harder and harder to sell from an underwriting perspective. It's gotten more and more expensive. The clients that I have that I've sold, I've seen rates go up, multiple times in the last few decades. So kind of an alternative to long-term care are some of the riders that we have on these two products, which don't cost anything because they're just an acceleration of the death benefit. And we'll talk about that briefly as well. And then the legacy fund, like we said, that's for whatever's left over at the end. I like to call it never money. It's money that you have, you don't really ever plan to spend. Ultimately, it's going to likely go to either a spouse, the children, or the grandchildren, potentially your favorite charity if they're philanthropic type people. But they do want to maintain control and ownership if possible. They don't love giving up ownership. They certainly don't love paying Uncle Sam, right? So when you talk to them about how much ultimately goes to their kids or their grandkids upon their death, they start to say, well, I didn't realize it would be such a small portion of what I have while I'm still alive. So if we can reposition assets to minimize taxes, they usually have an interest in learning more about that. And the thing I love about it is it doesn't create a bill, right? So you're not, your typical life insurance sale is a monthly premium that they pay. These two products, it's just a repositioning of assets. It doesn't cost them anything. They're just moving money from one bucket to the next. And again, long-term care needs, if it doesn't come out of their emergency fund, it may or may not come out of their legacy fund too, right? If they need long-term care, particularly some of the long-term care needs that can go on for years, things like dementia and Alzheimer's, if particularly the second spouse, right? If two spouses are still alive, they tend to take care of each other if one gets sick, but it's that second spouse that might end up needing long-term care for many years if the first spouse had already passed away. So Why asset transfer is such a huge opportunity? I mean, you'll see the screen, there's 4 different boxes there. Any one of those 9 boxes might be a light bulb that goes off in your head in terms of clients you ought to go see and talk to about these products. But likely many of your clients have, several, these boxes that they would check in terms of what might interest them, right? So the annuity market is roughly a $400 billion a year market. I would argue of those $400 billion that we're selling every year, putting into annuities, there's a portion of that the clients really aren't planning to use that for income. So it may be better suited going into these single premium life products potentially. The second box there in the middle, don't pass away with an annuity. One of the worst places to die is in a tax deferred annuity, right? Because you've created this tax burden to your beneficiary and they're going to have to pay tax on that. So, moving that money around while you're still alive can minimize taxes and ultimately create a tax-free death benefit. For any of your clients that are of RMD age, right, if they have qualified money, they've got to start taking their qualified money, a portion of it, every year. And so these products will satisfy the RMDs, which we'll talk about. Going down to the next row, it doesn't create a premium for your client, which I love. It's a repositioning of assets. It is, basic estate planning, right, without involving a lawyer or a trust per se. The living benefits piece, most of our clients are concerned about potentially, what happens if I need care. So we'll talk about those riders. There's a lot of money that's going to transfer wealth over the next 10 years, something like $22 trillion. And again, most of that wealth is not where it should be to effectively transfer from one generation to the next. And then the last box, which I think is the biggest opportunity for all of you, is no one's really telling the story, right? Most agents are going in much more transactional focused. So really taking a step back and getting the client to think about, not just what are their needs today, but what are their needs tomorrow. And if they're passing, hopefully it's not for a long time, but just, good fact finding can really lead to some really nice type concepts that will emerge and some nice sales for all of you as well. So we've hit on a lot of this. I'm not going to go through it again, but I did want to hit on a couple things maybe that we haven't yet covered, right? So about halfway down the screen there, you see the 2 lives. So you might have one spouse that's insurable and one that's not. We can still potentially put life insurance on the healthier spouse, but fund it with dollars that are that the unhealthier spouse or the uninsurable spouse might have in their IRA or their 401k. So we'll talk about that. And then the last bullet point you see there, 1035 exchanges. One of these products is set up as a perfect way to roll over money. So you might have clients that have ULs that aren't doing great. Interest rates have come down, right, quite a bit from the 80s and 90s when some of those ULs were illustrated at 10, 12, 14%. They're running out of cash value potentially. Or you might even just have clients that have whole life or guaranteed ULs, and they just, they reach a point where they don't want to pay the premium anymore. So you can take that cash value and 1035 exchange it into a paid up policy. They might have an interest there in doing that, so they don't have a bill anymore in retirement. Why don't agents sell life insurance? There's 7 bullet points up here. I think all of which we can overcome if we just take a little time to understand the opportunity, right? But especially those agents that are focused on annuities or maybe investments and financial planning, that first bullet point, they focus on accumulating assets versus, risk protection, right? They specialize in certain things, but I would argue, they're not really great fiduciaries if they're not talking to their clients about risk as well, and also tax deferral and guaranteed type investments and diversification, right? And a good mix of life insurance, annuities, as well as security and investment products. So they don't sell life insurance because they think it's complex. Those of you that do sell it, you realize it's really not that complex. And one of our objectives is to make it simple, right? They're scared of the regulatory requirements, the CE, keeping up with, state appointments, things like that. Discussing mortality is not fun. It's a lot more fun to help clients build wealth, right? It's less fun to talk about their eventual mortality. Agents think it's a longer sales process. I'll show you this morning or this afternoon that it's not. It's a quick, really 6-minute underwriting call to get somebody approved. And then that last bullet point, a lot of annuity producers and financial advisors are scared of underwriting, right? They think they spend a lot of time with the client. They don't want to risk the underwriter declining the case or saying no to the concept that they've already sold. So the two products we're hitting on, and I said I'd move through products quickly because I wanted to focus mostly on concept. But on the left-hand side, you see Generation Legacy, and that's your product that's designed for anything that's tax deferred. So your IRAs, your 401ks, tax deferred annuities, they're perfect vehicles or perfect funding sources to fund a generation legacy. And then on the right-hand side, single premium whole life, that's really designed for anything that's after tax. So non-qualified dollars, clients love the bank, right? They keep money in, savings accounts, CDs, as well as, the 1035 exchanges from other life contracts could fund a single premium whole life as well. Gen Leg, just to hit briefly on the product, like we said, it's for qualified or tax deferred dollars. The issue ages are 60 to 80. We don't start until age 60 because obviously if a client uses money, if they spend this money before 59 and a half, they pay a 10% penalty. The IRS doesn't want you to spend your tax deferred dollars until 59 and a half. So we saw this starting at age 60. We go to age 80. The way the product works is it's a SPIA that funds a whole life policy. It's all packaged together. So the money goes into an immediate annuity. It spits out an annual payment, which is matched up to be the premium of the whole life policy. So you can illustrate it to show the client, what happens during that period of time where the SPIA is funding the whole life, and then it's fully funded over a 7 or 10 year period, depending on their age. But from an underwriting perspective, they can qualify as long as they would typically fit into a standard through Table 4 rating with most carriers. They would get approved for the generation legacy with us. So you could have people that have, some health stuff going on, right? But as long as it's controlled. So for example, they might be diabetic, type 2 diabetic, but they keep their A1C under control. If there's no other comorbidities, they would likely qualify. As an example, if they have some cardio issues, high blood pressure, again, as long as it's controlled, they would likely qualify. The living benefits, they'll vary a little bit by state and condition, but it's going to cover terminal illness, nursing home care, as well as home health care or adult daycare. And we won't get into a whole lot of the details around that, but it's a great alternative to long-term care, right? Long-term care they pay for, they may never use it. I kind of compare it to term insurance, right? You pay for it, you hope you never need it, but if you never need it, it was an expense that maybe you wish you didn't pay for all those years. Well, same with long-term care. If you never use it, it's money out the door. So if you can just reposition your assets to cover your long-term care, that might be a good alternative for some of your clients. We mentioned the 2 lives option, right? So a lot of times you'll have a husband and a wife. One's younger and healthier, one's older and maybe uninsurable. You can put the life insurance on the healthy spouse, and you can use the IRA or the 401k monies to be to fund that life insurance. So that's a sales concept for you as well. The single premium whole life, this is the other product, right? That was on the right-hand side of the screen. It's for non-qualified after-tax dollars. So you can write this on a much wider age range of people, ages 50 to 85. You'll see that from an underwriting perspective, there's a little more leniency. There's actually 2 tiers, so you can go standard through Table 8, but it's the same living benefit riders that can be added as well. So it's really, determining what you're going to recommend is really comes down to the type of money that they would be using to fund those policies. You'll do a brief risk assessment. The underwriting is very straightforward. There's a couple sections on the application. They have to answer no to all the questions in Part A. Those are your basic knockout type questions, right? Are you on oxygen? Are you confined to a wheelchair? Those questions have to be answered no. And then Part 2 gets into a little bit more. They can still answer yes potentially to a question in Part 2 and still get coverage. But the key to this whole sales concept, and even before you take the application, I encourage agents to make the underwriting call first. So if you've got let's say you've sold the concept, the client says, yeah, it makes sense. Let's move that money from where it's at now to a single premium life policy with Baltimore Life. Then the next step is, let's see if you qualify. So you call an 800 number. The average call takes about 6 minutes. You as the agent have to be contracted with us already, so you've got to have an agent number. but it's a 6-minute phone call. The call center rep's going to ask you for your agent name, your agent number. They're going to ask what state you're taking the application in. Some very basic information from the client: name, address, date of birth, height, weight, last four of their social. And as they're doing that, we're running the prescription database and the MIB, medical claims data, in the background. So the client is, at the beginning of this call, doing a DocuSign to release their HIPAA information, right? Which we can't do any of that underwriting without them first doing the DocuSign to release their HIPAA information. So all that happens in about 6 minutes, and you get an approval policy number at the end of that call. 100% of the time. There's never any refer to underwriting. There's never any exams or APSs. There's never any physical underwriting. So in this market, the senior market, you can do pretty large face amounts without the client ever having to see a nurse or a paramed. So we've really made that underwriting process quite simple. We've got the 800 number there up on the screen. We'll get you more information after you get contracted there. And again, after you get contracted, you'll dive into a lot more about the process and the product itself. But it is a paper application for these two products, but we do also have what we call an e-submit option, which is a fillable PDF. If you're not face-to-face with your client, you could take the application over the phone, type it up into a PDF, and then they would get an email and a DocuSign event to sign the application that way. So we've got two options for you there in terms of taking the app. But these sales tend to be your much larger type sales, right? You can do small face amounts, minimum of 5,000, but depending on the client's age, you could do pretty large premiums as well. $500,000. We even had, a couple weeks ago, we got in $2 million cases because the clients were older, and we were able to write quite a bit of life insurance on them based on their age. So again, I threw a lot at you there. Just in the order of time, I want to pivot to the third product that we're going to talk briefly about today, which is our MIGA product. But again, as you have questions, we're happy to follow up afterwards as well on those two products. Again, I don't think most agents are talking about single premium life. And as you get into that market, or if you're thinking about clients you want to go see to talk to them about those products, again, get contracted, get the product information, get your marketers to help you with making sure that you have all of your application paperwork ready to go. We've got an agent portal that has lots of marketing pieces for all of you to refer to, underwriting guides, for example, product guides, brochures. But again, you'll go to your team at Levinson for all of that support initially. And then we're there to support you as well after you're up and running and submitting business. I want to pivot to our multi-year guarantee annuity product. It's a pure vanilla MIGA. We got into this market about a year ago. Our objective, if you're an annuity producer and you sell MIGAs, one of the reasons you may consider doing business with us is that our objective is to give you a product that's always going to be at the top or near the top in terms of interest rate for your client. It's a product that we're going to be in the MIGA space for years to come. We're not going to move rates a ton. We're going to, our objective is to stay top of market in terms of interest rate, but we also want to make it easy for all of you to do business. So again, in that same agent portal, once you're contracted with us, that's where you'll take your MIGA applications. It's an e-app. We also have paper apps, for those of you that are used to using paper, but when you get comfortable with our e-app, it's very easy to use. It's one-stop shop on our agent portal, so we don't use the Firelight platform. It's all done on our agent portal, but it's very easy to use. And again, like I said, we've kept this product very simple. I'm going to run through it. I won't talk so much about the concept here, right? MIGAs in general are all about, give me the best interest rate. I want to defer my taxes, compared to a CD. So I always say that, your typical MIGA sales client prospect, I should say, is somebody that likes safety. They tend to have a lot of money in CDs and bank accounts, but the problem with CDs and bank accounts, savings accounts, money markets, the interest that you get is depleted every year. It's reduced every year by the interest that you earn, right? You've got to pay tax on that. So, depending on what tax bracket you're in, if you're getting a if you're lucky enough to get a 5% interest rate on your CD, but you're in a 25% tax bracket, well, your effective interest rate is really, 3 point something percent, right? So your money doesn't grow as quickly in a CD compared to an annuity. The other thing that's great about annuities is the fact that they're written by life insurance companies, right? So a lot of clients, they like bank accounts because of FDIC. They feel good, they feel safe about it, right? But FDIC, that there's really no time horizon on when the federal government promises to give you your money back, right? So insurance companies are very safe. Unlike banks, when you give $1 to a bank, they lend out 8 or 10, right? When you give $1 to an insurance company, they invest it and they keep it on their balance sheet. And when the client wants their money back, it's there, right? It's the insurance company isn't trying to make money by lending like banks are. So, for those of you that are in the annuity market and you sell MYGAs, we hope to get on your shelf. We hope to be top of shelf, quite frankly, because we want to make sure that you always know we'll have a good, solid interest rate at or near the top of the market, an easy e-app, easy to do business with. We're there to support you, and really that's what MYGA producers are looking for, right? So, couple of things to hit on relative to our MYGA. It's going to have a guaranteed minimum interest rate, but it's also going to have a very competitive rate for that 3, 5, or 7 year period, which is the 3 versions of our MYGA that we have. We have a rate lock feature for up to 45 days when you take an app. So even if interest rates go down, we can guarantee you the client gets that rate at the time of application as long as we roll that money over within 45 days. You'll find our interest rates to be better than traditional annuities. Obviously, annuities in general, the idea is to give your client an account that they can't outlive, right? So they're accumulating assets, they're trying to get a good interest rate, and then eventually if they turn an income stream on, annuities are the only products that can guarantee an income that you can't outlive. So like I mentioned, our product is a single premium. It's a 3, 5, or 7 year period. Right now, interest rates are all pretty similar. So the 3 year is at 5.4%, the 5 years at 5.8%, and the 7 years at 5.85% interest. But it's guaranteed during that 3, 5, or 7 year period. It's an automatic renewal, which is pretty common in this space, right? If the client does nothing at the end of the 3, 5, or 7 years, it'll auto renew into a new 3, 5, or 7 year product at the current interest rate at the time, right? So annuity producers, you want to make sure that you X date and you go see your clients, ahead of those renewal periods, because they have a 30-day window to roll that money over when they get to that period of time. And there's also a free look, right? When you sell the policy, they have a period of time which varies based on state to make sure that they're comfortable with the purchase. And it's important as agents that we, resell that and make sure we can answer all their questions when they get to that, when they receive that issued contract in the mail. You can sell this on people as young as age 18 all the way up to age 90. Minimum premium's $5,000. Maximum premium is $1 million. And we'll actually go higher than $1 million if you have cases where clients are looking to move larger amounts over. Just have your marketers or Bill reach out to us at Baltimore Life, and we'll try to get approval to take in more than $1 million, which we've been able to do recently. So you can fund this with non-qualified or qualified dollars, right? The most common is rollovers from other annuities, but certainly we can take cash in the form of checks. We do a lot of trustee to trustee transfers, money coming from 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, things like that. So again, pretty much any source you can think of can fund an annuity. And then, in terms of payout options, when the client does get to that, period of time where they want to start an income stream, there's different options. Most clients will take a life income, but their payout will be dependent on, what sort of length of time they want to guarantee for that payout period. So the product itself, like all MYGAs, there's going to be a surrender penalty if they pull out money in the first 3, 5, or 7 years. It reduces each year during that period of time. But there's also a rider that can be added where they can take 10% out per year without a penalty if they want to add that rider. So there's 4 riders, 2 of which cost some basis points to add them, and then 2 are free. So the first is the free partial withdrawal rider. So just as the name implies, they can take out partial withdrawals up to 10% of the total premium every year without a penalty. it costs 20 basis points. So instead of getting, let's say you sold them a 5-year MIGA at 5.8%, but they want this rider, they're going to get 5.6% instead of 5.8%, right? The second rider is the enhanced death benefit. That's upon their death, the beneficiary would receive the full accumulation value instead of the surrender value at death. That costs 15 basis points. So if they're worried about making sure the beneficiary doesn't have to pay any sort of penalty if they die during the 3, 5, or 7 years, you can add that rider. The third and fourth rider are no cost, so you can just include those at no cost. The nursing home rider, basically, just as the name implies, if they end up in a nursing home, there's no charges to access their money if they're in the home. And then terminal illness, which is defined as expected to live 12 months or less. Again, there's no penalty to access their money because they're terminally ill. So that's really how the product works. Like I said, it's an e-application. We also have paper applications. The first two products I trained on were available in all 49 states. This product is available in 48 states right now. We're still waiting on California. So California is the only one that you couldn't yet write the MIGA product in, but we hope to have it approved there in the next few months. So, but again, e-application, it's all one-stop shop in the agent portal. Pretty easy once you've got a contract agent number and you spend a little time getting comfortable with everything in there. So those are the three products I wanted to hit on. I think I've used up pretty much all my time. So with that, I will turn it back over to Bill.
That was excellent, Sean. Before you drop off here, any other hot bullets, products, anything else that the agents should think about when bringing up Baltimore Life?
I think again, it's really the sales concept, right? So we're here to support all of you. We've been known for probably 100 years as a whole life final expense type carrier. So part of what we need to do as a company and as an agent force is make sure that clients know that our niche specialty really is in the single premium life space as well as the MIGA space. That's where we're really focused most of our attention here moving forward. We still have the whole life and the final expense products. We can support your distribution relative to those as well. But no, I think hopefully these are 3 new products that you can add to your quiver and make some sales that you wouldn't have made otherwise. We're not looking to replace what you're already doing. We're looking to hopefully add to it and support you to help your clients and make some more money as agents.
Absolutely. Yep. No, that was great. That's exactly come full circle what we spoke about in the beginning. All right, good stuff. So what we're going to do, thank you again, Sean. Fantastic. Once again, every agent is going to get a thank you email. We'll include a lot of these brochures, marketing material, and of course, contracting to get you set up and hopefully writing as soon as possible. We have a separate life and annuity department in-house. So Josh or RJ can help you on the annuity side. And then I'm sure about all of our life marketers by now. We have a team of 11 here to help you. So how to get started with Baltimore Life. If you go to our main website, levinsonandassociates.com, just click on contracting. And that's step 1. Step 2, right below that, it'll say request appointment, either with business or without. And then you're off to the races. On the right-hand side, you'll see the Baltimore Life folder. If you hover over client material, everything will open up below that under the yellow arrow. And then I believe, yes, we have agent compliant material and some consumer flyers and other pieces you can start getting out there to the masses. Okay, let's go to the next slide. What I want to talk about quickly, part of this new partnership press release rollout, this was a huge deal for us a few weeks back. And what does it mean to you, our agents, right? How is this going to help me, right? That's how you need to look at this. Everything that we had before was wonderful, right? That made us a top 10 national IMO in the life and annuity space. But how is this going to take me to the next level? And here's how and why. So we have this new senior health department. So think of over age 65, all of the top products, contracts, CRM platforms, leads, all the above. When it comes to senior health, we now have you covered. We have a separate department with a direct Levinson 800 phone number. So if you want to get started or you want to ask some questions, we literally, if you look at that bottom right corner, we have a form that was built just for the over age 65 health market. Just fill that out. That will come to me, and then you'll have an introduction call within 1 to 2 days. So because it's open enrollment right now, if you're a newer agent, that might take another week or so for a call. But if you're experienced, obviously they want to jump in right now and get you up and running. So either way, just fill it out and we will get back to you. Let's keep moving forward. What I want to talk about next is this partnership that was announced with AmeriLife. What does it mean to you, right? Above and beyond the health department we just touched on. And by the way, that's just part one of the health department, but part two is coming in, I would say, about 4 to 8 weeks. But we also want to talk about the agent benefits, right, that we didn't have access to before. And the way I look at this, I'm an agent, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, right, Key West, Florida, whatever it is, and I was on the career side. Let's say for my first 5 years, right out of college, I worked with MetLife, for example, and we had some great benefits. We had this back office support. All of that was great, but the commissions were cut in half, and I was only allowed to sell, whatever, 4 or 5 products. Okay, and you have to look at where we are and you are today. Fast forward and say, okay, now I'm an independent brokerage agent or agency, right? Or FA. So the great part is I have access to every competitive carrier and product, right? Just about the most competitive products on the planet, which is great. My commissions are now double or triple than what they were. Great. I have full control of my book of business. I'm agent of record, right? All of the pluses. But the downside was I didn't have health insurance. Okay. I had to get it on my own and pay whatever, triple, 4 times the price. Now you can stay independent, right? Be that independent brokerage, top GA or agent, and get access to all of these excellent group plans. Okay. So it's like you're getting the best of both worlds because of this new plug and play partnership. So this is what we're so excited about because, like I said, now you kind of have that whole career turnkey platform, but you still remain 100% independent and get that top commission payout and remain in control of your book. So this is awesome. We have a new exclusive lead program on the life and health side that you now have access to as well. And the discounted E&O product I spoke about earlier. So if you're in Florida, by the way, we have our live breakfast training tomorrow morning. So if you didn't register yet, if you're in Florida, let us know. We'll get you registered, but we got to do that before 5 p.m. today. If you're not in Florida, so we have 2 separate webinars that are coming up here in November and December, and we're going to talk all about the lead program, the health department, which we already had one, but we're going to have a lot more, and agent benefits. So keep your eyes peeled for that. The new lead program, right? If you're not in Florida, you're not going to be here tomorrow at the breakfast training. Make sure you're on that webinar on the 19th. That's Wednesday, the 19th. That's where we are launching this new exclusive lead program for life and health. Okay, let's keep moving forward. What I want to talk about next real fast is our mobile app. So as you know, and I hope by now you know, but our website, right, is literally award-winning. We were the first IMO to have Insure Me Now Direct, 100% direct to consumer with built-in e-apps on the life and annuity side, okay, many, many years ago. So we were also the first to have this mobile app where you can function from A to Z as an agent and help your customer all from the app without ever going into our website, okay, from a desktop computer, for example. So check this out when you can. We just updated it with all the latest expo info, and now we're going to have the health section on here as well. But I mean, if you run into someone at the grocery store tonight and you want to run a quote and sign them up through our iGo drop ticket or Insure Me Now Direct, you can do that all within 10 minutes right from our mobile app on your iPhone or Android. Okay, it's 123 and it's free. So that's the best part. Let's keep moving forward. Check that out when you can. By the way, we're almost done here. We'll get you out on time, which is nice for a change. Real fast social media post for long-term care. It's long-term care Awareness Month, as you know. So it's all about spreading the word, getting the message out there, planting the seed, right? If again, I have my agent hat on, I'm thinking, how can I educate, right? We all know webinars and seminars. Yes, they're great, but obviously you got to drive traffic. You got to make sure you have an audience to talk to. So social media, it's a free, great way to get the word out and educate. Okay. And these are two sample posts that drove over 100 likes, comments, and shares. And I want you to say to yourself, Billy, Jenny, Shelley, I can do this. Okay. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You change a few spokes. Okay. These two posts in front of you, these are simple, right? It's very, very simple. In my opinion, we even have a turnkey library where we can co-brand with your logo, your picture, your phone number, and build these for you for free. So all you have to do is get them out. Even if you say, Bill, I only have 4 followers, it's okay. If one person liked it, that's a free new lead, right? That you could sell a policy to. So anyway, and let's just look at the two posts in front of you for a second. 50% of older adults needing long-term care will require it for over 5 years, right? The question is, where does that money come from, right? That's where a hybrid or LTC policy comes in. Left-hand side is do's and don'ts. It's thinking about your parents, your grandparents, okay? And it's just spreading awareness. And then that leads to questions, boom, appointments, and the sale. All right, anyway, you get the point. Let's keep moving. This was one of my favorite podcasts ever. So I just recorded this on Halloween. Ron Smith is one of our top annuity agents in the country, bar none. Great guy. He shares an unbelievable story. Cancer survivor, really just turned the corner, and he's been crushing it, making all the conventions and trips and awards. And I'm just very proud, not only to call him a friend and a top Levinson agent, but for him to jump on here for an hour to help our agents, right, with ideas and strategies, priceless. Check this one out when you can. It's on all podcast channels, including YouTube. In fact, if you haven't seen it yet, I'd love for you to check it out and then send me an email. I want to hear your thoughts. I know you're going to love it, but I'd love to hear your feedback as well. All right, let's keep moving. We'll include all of this in the thank you email. This is our breakfast training tomorrow. Make sure if you're in Florida, it's free, great networking event. And again, we're going to have 2 special guest speakers. We're going to have our VP from Manhattan Life. We'll be there. Make sure you register and you are there because we do have a cap limit. So we got to cut this off at 5 p.m. Let's keep moving. These are our upcoming training webinars, which is what you're on right now. So just a couple things I want to point out. Next week is LTC Awareness Month webinar. So we're going to focus on some great sales ideas, hybrids, and standalone LTC products. We have our new lead program that I just spoke about. That's on the 19th. And then SILAC annuities, bigger and better than ever with our special VP guest speaker on the 20th. Right-hand side, we have Augustar is back for a relaunch, and then Coach Chris. Coach Chris, now just let me take a second. It's very important when you are selling, right, or you're putting together a strategy campaign for annuities and you're trying to create some sizzle. What I love about this particular webinar, Coach Chris is a independent consultant, not tied to one carrier. So he is going to tell you like it is, his top picks. He's going to talk about the industry, what changes he's seeing, and then what's to come, right, in 26, where you need to be ready in the annuity space. So don't miss that one. It's on the 11th of December. My final slide, question of the day. Make sure your little fingers are on the keyboard because you got to be first and you got to be correct to answer. And my positive Tuesday quote, real fast, talent starts the journey, but consistency and persistence takes you to the finish line, right? We all know how that works. You start and finish the race, but you got to have your game plan, your action plan, or else you're not going anywhere, okay? There is no race. So make sure your right foot is on the gas pedal and you are full throttle. We are here to help you every step of the way, as you know. There's no question that's too small or too big, okay? My question of the day, get your fingers on the keyboard. You got to be fast. Where do you go on the Levinson website to request a new carrier appointment? Where do you go on the Levinson website to request a new carrier appointment? I just touched on this a few slides back. It's also in our contracting handbook. So as you know, we have a contracting, a new business, and a marketing handbook. Think of like a owner's manual for a new car. Okay, same thing for each of our three departments. The contracting handbook talks about this. It's very easy. Hopefully you were paying attention. Hopefully you get this right. Let's rock and roll. Please tell me what the answer is to my question of the day. Andrew's going to say who was first and correct.
Yes, we have Ronald F. Ronald F.
Ronald F., congrats. It's very simple. Go to our website, click on contracting. Step 2, click on request appointment, either with or without business. That's it, folks. Congrats, Ron. Thank you again, everyone. Congrats to each and every person, because I know you walked away with an idea, a nugget, okay, as I like to call them. And by the way, you can all be a winner and get the IUL prospecting book free if you leave a review on our Facebook page or Google reviews link, okay, which will be in our thank you email. Have a great day, great selling. Thank you again, everyone.